I found a positive pregnancy test in my boyfriend's backpack. But I wasn't pregnant. Hello, everyone. Before we get started today, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video on our channel. Your support means a lot to us. Where are you watching from? Leave your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. For a long moment, I just stood there in the middle of our small apartment, holding the white stick like it was something toxic. The two pink lines stared back at me, clear and undeniable. My throat went dry. My brain tried to make sense of what my eyes were seeing. But no matter how I twisted it, the answer was always the same. Someone around Ryan was pregnant, and it definitely wasn't me. I'd opened his backpack only to look for my charger. He'd left it on the floor by the couch, half unzipped, like always. He never cared about cleaning up, never noticed when I picked up after him. But this time, I wished I hadn't. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, the test lying in my palm. I could hear the faint hum of the fridge, the distant traffic outside, even the sound of my own heart pounding. The thought came quietly, almost like a whisper. What if he's cheating? When Ryan got home that evening, humming to himself, everything felt unreal. He kicked off his shoes, tossed his keys onto the counter, and looked at me with that easy grin he always wore when he wanted to look innocent. "Hey, Liv, you look like you've seen a ghost," he joked, opening the fridge. I didn't laugh. I just lifted the test and placed it on the counter between us. "You want to tell me what this is?" For a second, his face froze. Just a flicker, barely there. And then he chuckled. "Oh, that? That's Melissa's, my sister's. She asked me to hold on to it for her." I stared at him. "You're telling me your sister gave you her pregnancy test to keep in your bag?" He shrugged, popping open a can of soda. "Yeah, she didn't want Mom to find out yet. She freaked out and asked me to hide it for a bit. What's the big deal?" The words sounded so casual, so rehearsed, that for a moment I almost doubted myself. But Melissa lived with their parents. She had her own room, her own bathroom, her own trash can. Why would she hand her brother something like that? I tried to swallow, but the lump in my throat wouldn't go down. "That doesn't make sense, Ryan." He rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting again. You do this every time. You always look for drama." And just like that, he walked away, as if the conversation was over, as if my heart hadn't just been ripped open. I sat there long after he disappeared into the bedroom, staring at that tiny piece of plastic on the counter. His voice kept echoing in my head. "You're overreacting again." But my gut told me something was wrong. It always had. That night, while he snored beside me, I lay awake in the dark, watching the faint blue light of his phone screen flicker across his face. Notifications kept lighting up. He turned it over, hiding them from view. I didn't need to read the messages to know. Something inside me, quiet, steady, certain, whispered the truth. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of something I wasn't ready to see. I've always thought of myself as independent. I moved out at 20, worked my way through college, and built a career designing spaces that made people feel at home. It was ironic, really, that I could create comfort for everyone else, yet somehow, mine never felt complete. I'd been living in our Denver apartment for 2 years. A cozy one-bedroom on the 5th floor with big windows and creaky floors that I loved. I paid for everything. The rent, the utilities, the groceries, the furniture Ryan insisted we needed. When we first moved in together, he'd promised to split things evenly once he got back on his feet. That was 1.5 years ago. He was still looking for opportunities. Ryan liked to call himself between jobs, though I couldn't remember the last time he sent out a single application. Most days he stayed home, gaming or scrolling through his phone while I worked late into the evening. When I came home, he'd be sprawled on the couch, half asleep, with takeout boxes on the table and some movie playing in the background. I used to laugh it off. "You're just figuring things out," I'd say, convincing myself he'd bounce back. But somewhere along the way, that belief turned into exhaustion. I started noticing little lies, harmless at first. He'd say he went to meet a friend, but his location showed he was at a bar. He claimed he was saving money, but somehow his credit card kept maxing out. Each time he'd smile, wrap his arms around me and say I was just stressed from work. And maybe I was. I designed spaces that were calm and balanced, everything I wasn't. Still, I stayed. Because when Ryan was sweet, he was really sweet. He'd cook breakfast, make me laugh, hold me like I was the only person in the world who understood him. And for a moment, I'd forget the growing weight in my chest, the imbalance I pretended not to see. I told myself love meant patience, that things would even out eventually, that he just needed time. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was carrying us, our bills, our future, our relationship, while he floated on the surface, comfortable, unbothered. I was the foundation, and he was the decoration, and sooner or later something was going to crack. The next morning I couldn't shake it off. Ryan's excuse about his sister kept looping in my head like a broken record. I stared at my phone for a long time before finally deciding to do something I'd never done before. Call Melissa. Myself. She picked up on the second ring, her voice cheerful. Hey, Olivia. What's up? I hesitated, trying to sound casual. Hey, this might sound weird, but are you okay? I mean, are you pregnant? There was a beat of silence, then a sharp laugh. Pregnant? God, no. Why would you think that? My stomach turned. Ryan said you asked him to keep a pregnancy test for you. That you didn't want your mom to find out? What? She said, sounding genuinely confused. I haven't seen Ryan in weeks. I didn't ask him for anything. What the hell is going on? I mumbled something about a misunderstanding and hung up before she could ask more. My hands were trembling again. So he lied, straight to my face, effortlessly. That realization hit harder than I expected. I'd always suspected Ryan bent the truth, but hearing his sister deny it so clearly made my chest ache in a new way. It wasn't just a small lie, it was a deliberate one. And if he could make that up so easily, what else had he been hiding? That night, after he fell asleep on the couch, I sat in the dim light of the living room with his phone bill open on my laptop. We shared the same account, so it wasn't hard to access. I scrolled through line after line of call logs, all those familiar numbers, family, friends, and then one that wasn't familiar at all. Same number, over and over, dozens of times a day, morning, noon, night. My heart pounded as I counted. 167 calls in just the last month. My fingers hovered over my phone. I shouldn't. I knew I shouldn't. But I dialed the number anyway. It rang once. Twice. Then a soft, playful voice answered, bright and full of laughter. Baby? Did you tell her yet? I froze. My breath caught. The world went quiet except for the sound of my heartbeat thundering in my ears. I didn't say a word. I just ended the call and sat there, staring into the dark. In that moment, everything shifted. The excuses, the charm, the empty promises, they all collapsed into one brutal truth. Ryan was cheating on me, and the woman on the other end of that line might be the one carrying his child. For 2 days after that phone call, I barely slept. Every time Ryan looked at me, every time he smiled or said my name, I felt sick. I wanted to believe there was some other explanation. Something. Anything. But the voice of that woman echoed in my head, bright and cruel. Baby, did you tell her yet? By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed proof. Not guesses, not intuition. Solid truth I could hold in my hands. That's when I called Sandra, a private investigator one of my clients had mentioned once during a casual lunch. Sandra's voice was calm, steady, almost soothing. You're doing the right thing, she said after I told her everything. If there's something to find, I'll find it. The next week felt endless. I went to work, smiled at clients, designed living rooms full of light, while my own world was turning gray. Ryan acted normal, maybe even more affectionate. He'd kiss my forehead before bed, ask if I wanted dinner, talk about future plans. It was almost theatrical. Then, one Thursday evening, Sandra called. I have what you need, she said simply. We met at a small cafe near my office. She placed a manila envelope on the table between us. I stared at it, afraid to open it. My hands shook when I finally slid the photos out. Ryan, my Ryan, sitting at a restaurant, leaning across the table, smiling at a woman with chestnut hair. Her hand rested on her stomach. Another picture, them walking hand in hand down a quiet street. Another, him kissing her outside a car. Sandra spoke softly. Her name's Haley, 24. She's 12 weeks pregnant. My vision blurred. They've been seeing each other for about 7 months. Sandra continued. He told her you're just a roommate. Said you let him stay until he finds a new place. I felt my pulse hammering against my ribs. He said that? Sandra nodded. And there's more. He's been planning to move her in here. Told her his aunt needs a place to stay, so you'll have to move out soon. She pushed a small flash drive toward me. Photos, videos, recordings. Everything you'll need. I couldn't speak. For a moment, all I heard was the clatter of cups, the murmur of strangers, the world moving on while mine quietly collapsed. Ryan hadn't just cheated. He'd built a future without me, inside my own home. And that was when something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to end this. When Ryan came home that night, I was waiting at the kitchen table. The envelope Sandra had given me sat beside my glass of water. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. He closed the door, whistling softly, tossing his jacket on the chair like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey, Liv, you look serious," he said, smiling as he walked toward me. "What's going on?" I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit." He hesitated, then dropped into the seat. I watched his expression shift as I slid the first photo across the table. Him and Haley, laughing over dinner, his hand resting on hers. For a heartbeat, he went pale. Then he let out a shaky laugh. "You've got to be kidding me. Who showed you that?" "Haley's been obsessed. She's crazy. She's trying to ruin us." "Stop lying," I said quietly. He leaned back, feigning offense. "I'm not lying. She tricked me, okay? She said she was on birth control. Then she gets pregnant and tries to trap me. I didn't even know she was taking pictures. I didn't move. I just reached for the next piece of evidence. A recording Sandra had given me." His voice filled the room, clear and confident. "Once Liv moves out, you can finally move in. She thinks my aunt needs a place, so it's all good." Ryan froze. When I looked up, his face was red. "You're unbelievable," he snapped. "You went through my stuff? Hired someone to spy on me? Do you even hear yourself? You're obsessed with control! You suffocate me." I kept my tone even. "You've been living here for free, lying to me, cheating on me, and planning to replace me in my own home. Don't talk to me about control." He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping the floor. "Haley understands me. She doesn't make me feel small like you do." The words cut, but not as deeply as I thought they would. Somewhere along the way, the pain had turned into clarity. I stood too, steady and cold. "You have one night, Ryan. Pack your things and leave. Tomorrow morning you won't have a key." He stared at me, stunned. "You're serious?" I've never been more serious. By the next morning, his clothes were in garbage bags by the door. I changed the locks before I left for work. And for the first time in months, when I closed that door behind me, I could finally breathe. 3 weeks passed. The apartment was quiet again. No dirty dishes, no empty soda cans, no noise from the living room TV blaring late into the night. For the first time in a long time, silence didn't feel lonely. It felt clean. I was sipping coffee on a Saturday morning when my phone lit up with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Liv, it's me." The voice was rough, small, almost unrecognizable. "Ryan." He sounded tired, defeated. I just wanted to talk. Please don't hang up." I didn't say anything. I let him speak. "She left me," he said after a pause. "Haley, she took my savings, my laptop, even the rent money. I'm behind on everything, Liv. I'm trying to get my life together, but I need help. I miss you. I've changed." For a moment, I just listened. To his breathing, to the faint desperation under every word. There was a time when hearing him like that would have broken me, but now, it only confirmed what I'd already learned. He didn't miss me. He missed the comfort I provided. I smiled faintly, though he couldn't see it. "You were right, Ryan," I said softly. "Haley really did understand you better." He sounded hopeful for half a second. "She did?" "Yes," I said. "She realized you're worthless." Silence. Then his voice rose, sharp and angry. "You think you're better than me? After everything I did for you?" I laughed quietly. "What you did for me? You mean what you did to me?" He started shouting. Something about loyalty, about me owing him for all those years. "I don't owe you anything," I said, my tone calm, final. "I've paid enough, with my money, my time, and my peace." And then I ended the call. 2 hours later, his mother called from a different number. Her voice was soft, pleading. "Sweetheart, he made mistakes. He's still my son. Could you please just talk to him?" "I understand, Mrs. Cooper," I said gently. But I'm done. When I hung up, I blocked them both. My hands were steady this time. Outside, the sky was bright, the city humming with life. I opened my balcony door, felt the cold wind sweep through the apartment, and smiled. Ryan had taken so much from me. But in losing him, I'd finally gotten everything back. My space, my peace, and myself. It's strange how quiet peace can be. For weeks after I blocked Ryan's number, I kept expecting the noise to come back. The arguments, the excuses, the constant heaviness that used to hang in the air. But it never did. The silence stayed, and for the first time, it didn't scare me. I started spending my evenings doing things I'd forgotten I loved. Painting small sketches, watering the plants by the window, cooking dinner just for myself. The apartment felt different now. It wasn't haunted anymore. It breathed again. One night, while reorganizing the living room, I found an old photo of us. It was taken right after we moved in. Me smiling, him holding me close, both of us pretending to be a version of ourselves that never truly existed. I stared at that photo for a long time before quietly slipping it into the trash, because the truth was simple. I hadn't lost Ryan. He had lost me. For 2 years, I'd mistaken love for responsibility. I thought caring for someone meant saving them, even when they didn't want to be saved. I thought loyalty meant silence, swallowing my doubts, patching holes he kept tearing open. I thought if I loved harder, he'd finally see me, but people like Ryan don't see the ones who carry them. They only see the comfort of being carried. I realized I'd been the one holding everything up, the bills, the home, the relationship, while he drifted through life, calling it freedom. And when I stopped carrying him, everything he built on my back crumbled. That wasn't my loss. That was his. I walked to the window and pulled the curtains open. The morning light spilled across the room, warm and golden, catching on the edges of the clean countertops and empty coffee cups. For the first time, the apartment didn't feel like a cage. It felt like mine again. I picked up the last garbage bag, filled with old papers, useless memories, and dragged it out to the hallway. As I tied the knot, a small, wry smile tugged at my lips. "The trash took itself out," I whispered. And with that, I shut the door behind me, sunlight flooding in. The air sharp and new. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's caretaker. I was free.